My name is Meghan Chisholm. I'm from Swift Current, Saskatchewan, and just recently on July 22nd, I successfully swam the English Channel solely. All the things that were written in the manual not to do, I ended up doing every single one of them. I remember when I was younger, preschool, going into elementary school, my mom would take us constantly from day one to the swimming pool every Friday with my brother. She would take us swimming, family swim, just rec swim. And then I just loved it. I don't know, I just absolutely loved it. And I remember begging my parents to put me in swimming lessons because I absolutely loved it so much. My mom found out from a friend of hers that if you really want to know how to learn how to swim, like endurance-wise, put them in swim club.
Meghan was a good swimmer. She wasn't one of the fastest kids, but now looking back, Meghan always swam. Like, she continued swimming, and she would go after work, and she would swim, you know, an hour and a half, and then it was 2 hours, and, you know, 2.5 hours.
I loved the swimming and the endurance and just the speed. I was never the fastest swimmer, never. I was never the fastest, I never got first, but I just loved swimming that. I just kept going with it. It's just easy, you know, once you find your mode and just relaxation, it just, you can go on forever.
She did talk about swimming and just kind of you know, sometimes thinking about things or kind of just letting her mind go and just not thinking about anything else but this swim itself, you know, when she does those long distance swims. And it was just a matter of time when she told us where she was going to swim. And yeah.
I got this idea that since I was taking a year off of school, I should do something, you know, with that year off before I go to school. And I've always wanted to do a long distance swim. I'm hearing these people swimming these channels and all of these different cool events, and especially after Diana Nyad swam from Cuba to Florida, which took her like 2 days. I wanted to do something, you know, I'm 19, I'm in shape, and I love swimming. Why not swim a channel? And it came down to the English Channel because there was no sharks. I kept watching and researching to know, like, if my mom ever asked me any questions, how far it is, how cold it is, how long is it going to take you? And I went up to my mom while she was in the middle of the kitchen during lunch, and I said, okay, Mom, don't laugh. I have this idea in my head. And then she turned around and said, oh, and what is that? Well, sometime soon I want to swim the English Channel. And she stopped there and said, oh, and how much is this going to cost me? My mom said, all right, you tell me what days you need me to book off of work, and we'll go to the swimming pool, ranging from how many hours you need to do, because you've been researching, you know what it takes, and I'll count laps and I'll help feed you and whatever you need me to do. And my dad was supportive too, you know, making sure that people knew what I was doing, and I was doing it for a great cause, for juvenile diabetes, and they've just been supportive the entire way through.
Well, she's a young adult, and we had spoken to her about, you know, volunteerism in the past. She has done some volunteering for other causes, and in the end, we chose juvenile diabetes, just knowing a few families in Swift Current that have their children have type 1 diabetes, and some of the families we both know of.
Really, this girl did most of her stuff on her own. When she got into this, She wasn't sure how to proceed with it, how to go forward with it. We have an annual poker tournament each year. She came to that and she met some of the people that would take part in that event, explained what she was doing, and that was just at the very start of it. Then throughout the course of that time, she ended up doing a lot of her own things. So as far as us supporting Meghan, I would say Meghan really supported us because she is a determined girl and she did a lot of this on her own. Meghan ended up raising just over $10,000 from the last I've heard through her efforts. And I understand that she was a little disappointed as she wanted to raise a bit more. She had a higher goal. But from our standpoint, every single penny counts. And the awareness that she brought towards this disease in the community and even provincially has been phenomenal. We can't thank her enough for that.
I heard rumor through the grapevine that one of our coaches, Meghan, is going to do the English channel Swam. And she actually approached me asking if I'll be okay to give her a workout once a week. And absolutely, I just said yes. Love to be involved with what she want to achieve, and this is something great.
Oh, Gary has helped out a lot. I remember the day I said, Gary, I'd like to swim. Then I told him about it, and then he was helping me train for endurance-wise, because it's not sprinting, it's more keeping that distance, or that time with that distance. And so he's helped out critiquing my stroke and just keeping me in shape.
You have to understand, swimming across the English Channel, being in the open water is totally different than swimming in a swimming pool where water is steady, all warmed up for you there. So I remember the first day when before we got in, I told her, you know what, this is gonna be a huge challenge for you. So I told her right off the bat, so what we're gonna do is to work on a little bit of stroke technique first, okay? And then we're gonna work on her endurance there, okay? Because when you're out in the ocean there and you gotta battle through the wave and the current, swimming against the current there, we have to work on endurance there. Be efficient with what you're doing. Just make sure you work on your technique a little bit there, okay? You don't need to go as fast as the first half, okay? But be efficient with what you're doing the second half. Sort of related to what Meghan's did, I remember making that decision when I was 16 to come to Canada by myself. And I remember it took me almost a week to think about, what am I have to do? So I remember going to a library and look for the world map and look Canada, right? I was like, oh my goodness, it's a huge country, right? Hong Kong is only a tiny little dot. So it's a huge jump. But I remember I told myself that, you know what, just do it. And then graduate with my physical education degree. And that's when I picked up my first coaching job in Qualicum Beach with my mentor, John Campbell there, and I coached there for 4 years. I got my first head coaching job here in Current, Saskatchewan. Okay, how many left now? 6. See? You can count and count very well. Meghan, she didn't believe that she could do it at first. I said, go, okay, you have to swim 400 meters under this certain time, and we're not gonna just do one, but you got to do 3 in a row, okay? And each time I want you to get faster and faster. She did get faster by each set, and I was like, there you go, you just show yourself doing something impossible, and that's your first step.
So one night we went over to my grandparents' house in Regina and we had supper there. My mom said, oh, Meghan has some news to tell you. And I said, all right, this summer I registered to attempt the English Channel. And then he told me his story about how he was there and how he was standing on Cape Grenade and how he saw the White Cliffs of Dover.
I was an infantryman. I served with the Royal Regina Rifles in World War II. And we landed with the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division on beaches on Normandy in June 1944. And then we went through Normandy to Falaise, and from Falaise we swung left, crossed the Seine River, and went up the channel, up the coastline. And Hitler had it heavily defended, it was what they called his North Atlantic Wall, gun emplacements, everything there. And so we went up the coastline, then we took the city of Calais, our division, and then we went to Cape Grisnez. And that's where Hitler had his what they call buzz bombs. And he was firing these rockets over into England and causing havoc, you know. We had quite a scrap. It was quite a fight, you know. The Germans put up a good fight. But we prevailed and we got there. And I can remember it was a beautiful day and we stood there and looking across the channel. There was those beautiful white cliffs of Dover. You've heard the song, Bluebirds Over the White Cliffs of Dover. And I made the joke to this guy I was with. I said, John, you think we could swim this? But never ever thinking in my wildest dreams that some 70 years later, I'd have a granddaughter cross that channel.
He helped me with my trip. He definitely helped me, and he was very supportive with my trip. And he just, after my swim, he just congratulated me. He was so proud, you know, to have a Chisholm to swim the English Channel, and never did he think that someone from our family would do it and become the first person from Saskatchewan to do it.
When he found out about it, he wasn't actually surprised. He knew that she would do it because, you know, Meghan's a determined girl, and when she sets her mind to something, a task, she'll do it. So he gave us a little history about it, and sort of there was a connection right there, and that sort of developed into that story that 7 years later that his granddaughter would actually swim across the channel.
I remember boarding the plane and my mom sharing the story as soon as we get on the airplane just to go, and I'm like, oh, Mom, I'm so nervous. And then we get off the plane and our driver comes to pick us up to drive us to Dover. And he asked us if we were going on the cruise because we were such a young family, and we said, oh no, my daughter's swimming the English Channel. And he was like, oh really? I've attempted the channel twice and failed. The way that he trained and I trained, totally different. And the way he trained is what you're supposed to train, and he didn't complete it. And the way that I trained, nobody's trained to that like small of a level that, you know, it just.
When we would meet people in the lobby at the hotel, and we would tell them where we were from, and then their questions were, well, where did you train? And we had said, well, Meghan is pool trained, and we live on the prairies. There's no ocean of water. We have a few lakes, but it was too cold to go and swim. You know, during the winter, you couldn't swim in the winter, right? So when we told them that, you could just see it on their face, and the way they had said to us, well, good luck with your swim.
Saturday morning, my family and I are up to go and tour around Dover, and we see this guy in this robe and this toque and a bunch of people celebrating, and my mom asks, what are you guys celebrating about? And he said, well, I just found the channel, I did a night swim.
We met a man named Simon Dominguez. He's an Australian who swims out of San Francisco, and he had just successfully swam the Friday night, the first night we were there, in the worst storm ever.
He sat down with me and he asked me, you know, are you committed? Like, do you want to do this? And I said, yeah, I definitely want to do this. And he said, you know, there's going to be two outcomes of this. You know, you're going to get out there and you're going to hit a dark patch, which all the English Channel swimmers hit. You know, there's this dark patch where you don't know if you want to keep going. You're thinking of giving up. You know, you're getting tired and you're just wanting to quit. If you quit, you'll go home and you'll tell all your friends and family that, you know, I didn't exactly make it, but, you know, I still want to go back. So you'll have that hunger to go back and redo it, and you'll be potentially in the same spot, making the exact same calls and being just at that same fitness level. You might as well just do it now, right? And so he said, but if you're committed and you say, you know, you want to do this, you'll just keep swimming and you're going to have to get through that dark patch. I did hit that dark patch, and I was thinking, you know, am I going to give up? Is this it? And that was at that last 2 mile mark, which was very, very frustrating. And I thought about him, and, you know, without his tips, I don't know if I would have been able to make it. hiking up Dover Castle, and we were doing, because we thought I was going Thursday or Friday, because he said, you know, the tides are looking great for Thursday and Friday, let's plan for that. All right, so we decided to go travel. We hiked up all the way from our hotel to Dover Castle, you know, all these stairs and running around. And
we just expended a lot of energy climbing up this Dover Castle. We were pretty tired, and then we got the text message at about 2:30 in the afternoon. So
I gave this call saying, ready to go tomorrow because it's looking great, and be ready for 5:30. We'll start swimming at 6:30 in the morning. The mood honestly changed in a split second.
I think that we had the worst sleep of our lives, and just for the anticipation of this big swim.
We go all the way to the port, which is about a couple blocks away, and I meet my other pilots, Gary, and the observer, Steve, and we got all our stuff ready, and the harbor was quite rocky, and he said, all right, you know, there's been a couple dropouts, you know, if you feel like today's not the day, I don't want you to feel like I'm twisting your arm or anything. Like, you can say, I don't want to go today, we'll go the next opportunity. So I said, you know what, all my gear is packed, I'm ready to go, it's now or never. And one thing I will remember is that I never thought once of how cold the water was. I never thought about the temperature at all, which was awesome. But I remember as I was swimming towards shore, the swimmer just started, and we were about like 20 meters apart, and it was just so weird. We were going the opposite direction. She was just starting, and I was just about to go on shore to start. And then once I got on the land, away from the water, I caught my breath, put my hand up saying I was ready. They honked the horn, and it was just, I slowly stepped into the water and just dove in. It was just getting my pace and going.
While she was training, she had eaten things like bananas, some chocolate, bread with almond butter, any kind of nutritional high intake stuff. We had kind of thought we were going to do the same thing when we got there. Then after talking to other swimmers, we decided to change up the diet a bit.
For some reason, I didn't eat breakfast that morning. I had like no food in my system, so I immediately thought, you know what, I need to chug all of this fluid in my bottle. Like, I need to down it. And so I was taking in so much nutrition, my stomach was getting too full, and by the third feeding, I just threw everything up that I had. And that went on about 2 more times. I threw up everything, and it felt so good.
We had thought that the swim was over at 3 miles because she was so sick. But the food that she had taken was too rich. After she got rid of it, she just said, oh, I feel good, and she kept swimming.
But from there on to the halfway point, I don't remember a thing. It was just, you were just in that moment, and you were just going with the flow. And I don't remember anything until my pilot said, all right, Megan, you're halfway. So I said, okay, this is really cool. I'm entering French waters now.
Over halfway now. About 3 kilometers into her swim, 4 kilometers at that point. I never seen jellyfish before. Nobody has,
No.
you know. But I knew right away when I first saw them. They came floating as a group, and they looked like cow patties.
So I remember seeing 1 or 2 jellyfish. I wasn't scared or nervous about it. I just saw 1 or 2, and that was the first time I've ever seen a jellyfish ever before, which is pretty cool.
So Mom yelled out to Megan, there's jellyfish ahead, there's jellyfish ahead. And I thought, well, geez, don't scare her, because, you know, she can't do anything. You know, she has to swim through them.
And then I'm seeing 5, then I'm seeing 6, and then 10, and I'm thinking, oh boy, this is the school of jellyfish that I read about in my manual. And so I turn over to my dad, who was on the boat, and he's leaning over the railing, covering his mouth and pointing. And my mom's like freaking out in the sidelines, screaming at me, Megan, there's jellyfish! And I stopped swimming, and I'm like, I know, I can see them. I'm freaking out too.
We could tell she was flinching a little bit, you know, as she was going through those little school of jellyfish.
Once I got out of that, I felt, all right, I'm out of the school, let's keep going. A couple minutes later, I ended up grabbing a jellyfish on my arm, swiping it towards my nose, and one of the tentacles got my nose. And I see this jellyfish in my face, and I throw it, and I look at my nose because I thought it was bleeding, but it wasn't, so it was good.
I thought, oh God, you know, if this happens, you know, throughout her swim, I don't know if she'll make it or not, you know.
It ended up that the marks that I felt on my wrist and my thigh and my nose didn't leave a mark at all. The ones that I didn't feel left a mark, which was on the sides of my neck. So it's kind of cool to have a little bit of a war wound, I guess.
Yeah, at that point we could see Cape Gurney. That's just a point off the French coast. And for about 2 hours, it never changed position. Only the fact that we were just getting further and further away from it, so we were just drifting down the coastline. And that was the French tide that was keeping her out.
I saw France, I was getting closer and closer and closer. I was getting more excited to finish it. And as soon as I could make out houses and I was, you know, getting excited because Dover, I can't see Dover, I can't see the White Cliffs anymore. So I finally asked my pilot, right, how much more do we have? And he said 2 miles. Awesome. I was thinking land miles, but they're nautical miles, which is longer.
When we hear 2 miles, we just kind of cringe because she was stuck at the 2-mile mark, and that 2 miles, she was there for over 2.5 hours and swimming, and she was literally just swimming in inches and inches.
And I remember my mom pulling Gary to the side and asked, okay, what's going on? Because we need her to make it. And I was getting a little depressed and a little frustrated, and so I remember that was definitely the rough patch that Simon was saying, you know, this is where you're gonna wanna give up. And I remember stopping at one point. My dad was looking at his camera. My observer was looking at his camera. My mom was talking to both pilots that were in the front. Nobody was watching me at that point. And I just stopped and thought, is this it? Am I gonna quit and go out back on the boat? And I thought about, you know, I don't wanna go home and say, you know, I was only 2 miles off, because that's just frustrating. You know, I want to make it. I came here to do one thing, was to make it. And so I put my head back in the water and did what Simon said, you know, you just got to keep swimming.
So in some situation, the swimmer with a weak mentality, they could like, oh my goodness, I'm not getting anywhere in 2 hours, you know, they could easily get given up, right? But Meghan just, you know what, just go. Keep on going and hang on to it.
And then when she broke free of that 2-mile mark, it was just coming home, like it was just instant, it was just happening. And the tide was bringing her in, and
I kept swimming, and I remember this moment where my pilot said, all right, take a little swig of water. Gary is gonna hop on the little boat behind us, and he's gonna follow you into shore. And he went over the procedure saying, you know, if anything happens, you know, this is a signal to give, and then we'll come out and we'll help you. So I remember swimming, and I was like, okay, I'm almost there. And I almost didn't want to finish it too fast. I wanted to take it all in and just like slowly make my way to shore. And I remember just this big push of the wave pushing me towards the rocks, and I hit the rocks, and I was just surprised because I thought I had more to go.
Come on, Meghan. Come on, Meghan. She's starting to climb to the rocks. She's out of the water! She's done!
Eventually I stood up and the horn was honking, saying time was done, you completed it. And it was just, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know whether to scream, whether to raise my hands in the air, whether to throw sand. I was just excited. Yay!
Done now?
during the swim towards the end, Eric had said to us that this is actually a true English Channel swim. You know, initially, you know, we had told everybody that it was a 34-kilometer swim, and when it all was said and done, she actually swam 48.4 kilometers because she had missed the tide.
There she is!
You know, one of the blogs that was on the Marine Tracker website was remarked that this person couldn't understand why she went like she did, kind of diagonal. If you look on the map, you just go straight across to Cape Grenade from Dover, and that's 34
would have been ideal.
kilometers. But then when you get out in the actual channel, you have all these other conditions going at you, like the tides and the waves, the wind, and of course that distracts the swimmer, and it just carries them down the further down the channel. So on a perfect day and everything's going for you, you can swim straight across as the crow flies.
And I remember I had to go find a rock. I was all right, which one's gonna be my rock? And I found a rock, and then I turn around because I hear someone say, "Excuse me." And I turn around and there's these French people, and they asked me about my swim and if I just swam the channel, and I said, yes, I did. And they asked me where I was from, and I said I was from Canada, and my mom's shaking the flag at the boat, and they congratulated me and applauded me, and I decided to swim back to the boat, even though Gary had the little boat for me to go back to the boat, but I decided to swim back to it, and I did 3 strokes of butterfly on the way back. I met this lady called Frida. Her daughter's Queen of the Channel. She's done a little bit over 40 crossings herself, which is incredible. But her mom is the one that trains everybody, and she knows all the key terms and how to train. And so I spoke to her after, and I did this on purpose because I knew she would tell me, "You're not ready." So I told her my story, and I said, "And I was successful." And she literally looked at me with wide eyes and didn't say anything for about 3 or 4 seconds and said, "Wow."
Yeah, so way to go, Meghan.
My driver found out that I swam that channel, and he was asking me, "How did you do it? Tell me your ways."
And that's what makes Meghan different than the other people there. When people can receive so much negativity, but she was just, you know what, I'm gonna prove them wrong. And that's what Meghan is, period.
I remember getting back to the hotel absolutely dead, and my phone was just, had so many notifications. My dad had so many emails because it's 1 o'clock in the morning in Dover. There it's like 2 in the afternoon. Like, people are up and they're listening about this. And you know, while I was swimming, the radio was going on saying how far I have left or how far I've gone. I was reading on my Facebook wall, like, people are like, "Oh, the radio's keeping us in touch, you know, like, you're halfway there, good job." Apparently I was on the radio all day. I didn't even know until after I swam.
Well, as far as we know, she's the first person from Saskatchewan to have swam the channel. Now, I think there's others that have tried, but apparently in Dover, they have the Channel Swimmers Association, and they have a list of all the names of the people and addresses who have done it. And I believe she's the only one from Saskatchewan who's swam across and made it. It's historical.
I'm just so glad that I was involved with Meghan's achievement. It's really something that gonna go on my resume.
I don't think I'd be able to do it if my parents weren't there on the boat, because they were there supporting me and, you know, telling me, you know, you're doing good, keep it up, you know, we're here for a reason, right? And without them, it would have been a different story. I don't know if I would have made it without their support. So yeah, I'm going to school for 4 years for nursing and RN. Obviously there's no time for training during that 4 years. It's very stressful time, schoolwork and everything, but my mom wants me to do crossing across Lake Ontario, because that's where the Canadians, you know, train to go to England, is to swim Lake Ontario before they swim the English Channel, which again, I didn't do. Just gonna go backwards, let's say, because I'm also wanting to do a relay across English Channel, which is backwards again. But my next channel swim is between Morocco and Spain. I want to do that next. It's, I talked to Simon, and while he was saying he was going to swim across Lake Tahoe, I told him I was going to swim across between Morocco and Spain. He said, "Oh yeah, a couple of my friends have swam that, and it's a great swim." So it's one of those things, again, that's on my next list, is that channel. You know, when things seem impossible, and definitely things do seem impossible, you know, you're going against the odds and not knowing what the outcome is going to be. Definitely it's scary, and definitely, you know, you're worried about it. But, you know, it's part of life. You know, you got to take those chances, and if you want to make a difference and you want to do something, you just got to take those risks and those chances, you know.